I can't make it twice.
I call this meeting to order. Would you please take roll?
Mrs. Leskowitz.
Here.
Mrs. Butler.
Here.
Mrs. Donahue.
Here.
Mr. Reed.
Here.
Mrs. Kiplinger.
Here.
Say the pledge allegiance.
With allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And then approval of the agenda. Can I have a motion to approve tonight's agenda?
Oh,
Can I have a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? Right.
Raymond, here, I'm losing my mind. Who moved?
I did.
And thank you, Andy.
I seconded.
Okay, so Mrs. Leskowitz.
Yes.
Mrs. Butler. Yes. Mrs. Donahue.
Yes.
Mr. Reed.
Yes.
Mrs. Kiplinger.
Yes.
All right, now we'll start off with a board discussion for annexation.
Oh, good time.
Yeah, it was ready to go. Yep.
We're a lot faster than we used to.
You and Peter are on the clock. Sorry.
We'll be deducting 37 seconds.
We got 'em.
Yeah.
Would you mind terribly if I took this piece of plastic out of my mouth?
No, well, we just still.
Thank you. We went through the due diligence report with the city of Huber Heights that was dated the 4th of June. To try to give some ideas and concepts to share, and maybe put together some action steps moving forward. As you know, there's a relatively short fuse on this in terms of what's going. It's our goal would be that you give sufficient direction to our superintendent and treasurer, plus we're scheduling 3 meetings. One with the mayor of Huber Heights, second would be with the representative of the school district, probably the superintendent, but maybe others. Then of course a meeting with the developer. So if any board members think that that's a meeting that they want to attend or any of them, but I think what you need is information. You know, we have the due diligence report. We have a lot of data. There's been no resolutions formally passed moving forward yet, is my understanding, although there's been discussion at the last couple of Huber Heights City Council meetings. And so I think one of the tasks would be that we should be as prepared as possible, with information, so you can kind of react. So I'll go through this with Tina, help as quickly as I think is appropriate. Stop me anytime if you have any questions or why it's inappropriate, if it is inappropriate. You know, if 2 members of the audience want to add a question or 2 at a time, I think that would be helpful as well. Okay, based on the June 4th due diligence, it looks like there's an estimated 1,400 housing units coming our way. They're talking about annual construction of 100 homes per year. And it's a 15-year project. And that's in January, at the earliest of 25 and going through 2040. Using the last 3-year average of carriage trail number 1, they're thinking that the average price of going 42 will be around $22,000. They're not assuming any increase in those prices in the next 15 years. That might be unrealistic. But nevertheless, that's what they're talking. The average sale price of home and carriage trail 1, however, was down to $290,000.
So this at the 402, you're saying this for carriage trails 2?
Well, that's what they're estimating the average, but they're basing that on the last 3 years of sales for carriage trail 1. That's what the charts have indicated.
sales started at about 250 to 290, and now it's gone up considerably.
Right.
Some are 3 something, 4 something. I
Oh,
even
yeah.
saw one for 515.
So I just asked because we had heard the starting price is gonna be around 450.
Yeah.
Was what the next.
And they may not be wrong. Again, that's what they're basing. Plus, I didn't get any information as to the size of the homes. I assume the development will be similar in scope as a carriage phase one, but I don't know that either.
They said 5 units to an acre.
Yeah, I know that. Yeah,
But
which
then
is,
they also said like some retirement type homes where they like older.
cluster
people-
homes are talking and yeah, it's kind of hard to say because there is no development plan that has been submitted yet. You know, it starts with the main streets and then they kind of go from there and then they tinker.
And they tend to change their mind.
Oh, yeah.
Which they find
Historically,
better revenue somewhere.
Yeah, it's a good call there. You know, so based on the numbers that they're using, again, using a lot of this data comes from phase one, you know, they're just, pushing it forward. We could expect up to about 83 students per year, which means after the 15-year plan build out, it's about 1,245. Tina and I have kind of looked at their age demographic, and I don't know that it makes a lot of sense. So I think Mike and Tina are going through, and you'll see that a little bit later on. I think you need to do your own demographics. Maybe if you need someone that comes in, a consultant. But it makes a lot of difference if you build an elementary school anywhere, and these kids come in middle school or higher, or vice versa. So I think you need to try to get as good a handle as possible as to, Carriage Trail's been around now for 15 years, I think, 2010.
Yeah.
And so, kids who might have started in kindergarten, Carriage Trail are gone. And so you want to kind of take a look at the entry year. Are these starter homes for $400,000, or younger families moving in demographics? So I think those are going to make a lot of difference, and you'll see later on in this presentation. There we have that. You'll see that Tina put down at the bottom, the May 22 enrollment. Last year was a 1751. We ended last year with 1929, which was an increase of 178. And then a couple months ago, 1995. So we're almost at 2000 right now in terms of enrollment.
And at times during last year, we went over 2,000, as we know, it's a moving
Yeah.
target, but we just picked the end of the year to sort of prepare
Yeah.
each time.
The due diligence had us listed at 54% of our enrollment comes from Carriage Trails 1. That number was low, it's about 71. So it makes me wonder, did they use two-year-old data? But for whatever it's worth, you're currently at 71%. If we add an additional 1,245, that's going to put that number, I think we're very close to 90.
Yeah.
Or maybe even higher. So administrative staff is currently developing enrollment for students living in Carriage Trails, like we just said, by grade and year. I think you'll need to have data to help kind of figure out as best you can facilities planning. And the developers pledge acreage, at least in the due diligence for a new elementary building. There was no final document. I didn't see anything in there about size. I've heard 20 acres, but even
It
so,
was 18.
18 is what he told us.
but again, you could have said 10 or 4.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
Until we see that.
600 to 700 students,
I'm sorry.
600 to 700 students, there's a requirement, right, for the acreage.
There-
And
there was a
that's
couple-
what they were predicting, that we would build it for 600 to 700
And
students.
in fact, that's an elementary building,
Mhm.
if we do a
That's the
different,
assumption.
yeah, a different building. And that's one thing that I think that, that Mike is going to work out with Tina's help. Again, based on the demographics, a new elementary building may not be your best choice.
Yeah.
They may be current Bethel buildings, maybe adding on to what you have is a possibility. An intermediate school building down there, a K-8 building down there. You can reassign some of the students to carriage from phase 1 to phase 2 if you do decide you're going to put a building there. So the next one, you may want to consider an educational facility planner to give your administrative staff and the board some scenarios, a couple options that you're, again, adding to existing, new building construction, maybe grade reconfiguration. What we're going to do with the old elementary school, New facility, carriage, is that going to be elementary or is it going to be, 3-9? Whatever combinations that you want. And then you'll have some political issues if you decide to take kids out of the current building from phase 1, put them to new building phase 2. Not everyone's going to want to leave your elementary facilities. We, as we just said earlier, I think your administrative staff is going to have a dialogue with the developer. A couple of things we need to know. Utilities, I think, are not addressed sufficiently. They talk in the, certainly in the due diligence, they talked about safety planning, talked about water, talked about a new fire station. But I think in terms of Carriage Trail 2, if they're going to put a school in, that's an upgrade. And a lot of the utilities and a lot of the things that need to be accounted for. As we talked about the location. The review of street design, it's no surprise with a lot of accidents, bus accidents in phase 1. Some of those streets are just not meant for some of your bigger school buses. So some dialogue. I know the goal of the developer is to maximize, lots, and I respect that. But on the other hand, if we're going to try to get, eventually 1,200 kids out of there by school bus, it could be a problem unless we at least know what they're going to do. It may make a difference, for example, if you decide you need to purchase buses, if you buy smaller buses. It goes to a 64 and 75 passenger bus. So, the more intel you can get and the quicker you can get there, I think the better served you're going to be.
But if we put the school within that 2-mile radius, so we don't have to worry about busing, right?
Well-
If we're going to school over there.
That's correct.
Okay.
That's correct. And you would never have to worry about high school
Okay. Oh, okay,
unless your board policy says so.
gotcha.
And that's AKA is a 2-mile radius. And we talked again about the location of the proposed building site. Hopefully it's in a place that's serviceable for you, location, if it's out one or the other to make it good or bad in terms of egress, curb cuts and things along those lines. But those are conversations we recommend to have with what the developer has in mind, because he will be presenting this information to Huber Heights City for review, and then Huber Heights City will make the adjustments they think are appropriate.
So when you guys have your upcoming meetings, these are the types of things that you guys are gonna discuss?
I wasn't planning on being there,
But
these two, unless the board, I mean, if you want me to go, fine, but I think they can
Yeah,
handle it.
I already stopped at New Heights, gave the mayor dates I can view them.
Oh.
I'll have no problem getting to Beaver Heights and then they would catch up with the developers.
Then again, assuming housing construction may start as early as 2025, you'll also want to start dialogue about a short-term plan for increased enrollment for the 25-26 school year in September. You may not get 100 homes in, but as you know, once a family's under contract for a home, every time we come to your district, whether a house is ready or not.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. that
So-
would be here.
So, the positive, I don't know exactly how, desirable these will be, but you need to kind of plan, have something in place almost a year from now. Even if it's module, or some of the things we had out here, you recall for years.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know where they are now.
And go put them.
Send them back.
Those were,
On standby.
And one of the bigger things would be whether or not Huber Heights City School District ultimately is either going to change its mind, be pressured to change its mind regarding a territory transfer. So I think, and again, a meeting with administrative or board representative, the Huber Heights, we need to know, if they're going to do it. If you start planning and doing all this, and then there's a territory transfer. As you know, it's typically an even year thing, so you'd be talking April of 2026. However, there's a different statute for annexation property, if they want it now. But that doesn't seem to be happening now.
yeah.
But again, you want to keep an eye on the Huber Heights. Keep in mind that regardless of what the Board of Education will initiate, residents of this phase 2 and actually residents of phase 1, if they can work out a contiguous pattern, have a petition option also. I don't think that was the case at all for phase 1. As I recall, we specifically wanted to stay in Bedford schools. And the assumption is that phase 2 will still be that way, but again, there's no guarantee that that'll work. There was an interesting quote in the due diligence, so I just kind of put it right there. And according to the due diligence report, upon the completion of Carriage Trail Phase 2, more Bethels families will live within the boundaries of the city of Huber Heights and in any other area of the school district. When considering the long-term implications, there's a high degree of likelihood that future policies for us will transition toward a city-inclusive nature.
Thank you for explaining that. It
City-
blew my mind.
The city-inclusive nature, I think it's in other planners, and I asked a couple other city planners. It's a mentality state of mind that Carriage, phase 1 and 2, they do their shopping in the Huber Heights area, their entertainment in the Huber Heights area. Their politics, their city politics would be the city of Huber Heights. Less of those three happening in Bethel Township. So the mentality may shift. And while the kids may go to school, we are Huber Heights residents. Sometimes that has an implication on some of the things that you're going to do as a school district. I didn't particularly like that in confidentially, but it's not quite a threat, but it's kind of like, it's a bottle shot.
Yeah, kind of a bully thing.
Or do you want to leave with the city or do you want to leave with the school district?
Mhm.
You know, that's kind of what they're referring on that.
I wondered if it meant that they would try to come in and just take all of the district and claim that was their own.
You know, that's a possibility, but in order to do that, they would have to start, they'd have to annex at least one portion of your district into Huber Heights. But once you do that, then you can start doing contiguously. That makes sense. Well, yeah, that one parcel, trying to think, that's a little to the east, to the west of Carriage Trail, trying to think.
I mean, all of Carriage Trail
No.
was annexed.
No, I'm talking about the school district.
Well, the kids go to school and things.
Yeah, in other words, if they annex all of you, then the statute's going to say that the whole district goes to Huber Heights. You don't, if the totality of your district is in the city, then, and we'll probably lose as a school district if they want to go there. But right now, if they wanted to take more of your property, Huber Heights would have to start with something that's contiguous to their school district. I think I'm answering your question.
That's a.
Okay. Did you have something you wanted to add?
No, I'm kind of with her. I think that's already happened, but we can go through that again. Probably just need more time to think
Well,
about that.
all right, wait, but that's an important point. Are you suggesting that right now, part of Bethel Township territory is in Huber Heights schools?
No, that's
Oh.
what you're saying. It would have to be in Huber Heights schools? Yes.
I'm saying that,
I see how you're saying.
okay, it would have, yeah, that's how it would have to start.
Okay.
Or the township.
Yes,
Okay.
None of the township is going to Beaver, Huber Heights, I said Beaver Creek.
It's not gonna be in
Beaver
Beaver
Heights,
Heights.
no, not either, yes. So it's all Bethel.
Okay, I understand.
Yeah.
It's next to Huber, but yeah, not.
I was thinking opposite.
Yeah.
That's why I didn't even know what it meant. That's why I said, what does city inclusive mean exactly? What do you mean by that, you know? And how does it impact us? Cause that's pretty vague.
well, and again, it may. You know, it may also affect, candidly, board elections. Vast majority of your voting residents, reside in phase 1 and 2. Right now, I don't think any of you reside in phase 1. Big Lida, she, Lida Mansfield lived in phase 1.
It was on Parktown or phase 1.
But there was, I think case.
Okay.
The, moving forward, project funding, impact fees and development agreements. Again, as of the June 4th due diligence report, there's been no formal communication or action. No discussions going on, you know, regarding who's going to pay the impact fees. I think the due diligence report said that that's cost going to be passed to the individual homeowners. Developmental agreements and things along those lines have yet to be discussed. And I'll get into that a little bit more. We'll talk about the alternative funding. The other issue here would be income tax revenue. They're talking that, again, based on the income of Carriage Trails Phase 1, when the new 1,400 plus household of Phase 2 are complete, we're talking about approximately $156 million income tax revenue. Well, you have a earned income tax yourself, and I don't think we've had the chance, Tina, to figure out what the implications of that will be financially for you.
So that's what Huber is going to. The 156 million will be their,
Well, they got 2.25%.
that will be their gain, right?
That would be the bulk.
That's not our.
Well, they have their own income tax.
Right,
The income tax revenue is there for any political subdivision who can generally legally attach an income tax rate to it. Huber Heights is 2.25, which is a lot more than property tax they're going to get. And that's not unusual. That's why you get a lot of abatement situations. They pay property tax to build and construct for the purpose of generating income tax.
Cause it's a win-win for them, they don't get that much in revenue from their property taxes,
Right.
most of that
It will
comes
come
from
to
the schools.
But the 156 million, that's goes to us or that goes to Huber?
Huber.
No,
That's
sorry,
Huber,
that goes to neither. That's the aggregate wealth
and then
of all the
it's divided.
salaries. No, that's,
Oh.
okay, that's the salaries that the income tax rates levied against, based on their estimates.
So they'll be able to tax that at 2.25, and if our income tax passes this time, hopefully, yes, we'll speak positively, at 0.75, that's what we'd be taxed.
And again, that's after the 15-year period. So incrementally. you know.
So they pay both, so they'll be paying
Yes.
3%.
Yeah, residents currently pay in Carriage Trails 1 pays City of Huber Heights taxes and Bethel Local School earned income tax.
So you pay 3.
And they don't.
Which makes me nervous about them approving ours.
The
Yeah.
The due diligence agreement talks about different potential funding strategies. The city council, of course, has not zeroed on any of them. So there's no sense spending a lot of time here, other than it sounds like the goal would be that you would not be denied any legitimate property tax revenue. You'd be entitled to about these strategies. So either you'd be reimbursed or you'd be allowed to tax it directly. That's the thinking right now, using any of these particular sources. The only thing would be, there is at least 3 tips I think we found so far. Tax increment financing. The difference between that and others, there is a township tip in place. And according to the due diligence report, their legal counsel seems to suggest there may be some deficiencies in the township's tip as it relates to this particular set of properties. However, they conclude that's a projected litigation, nobody wants that. So it sounds like they're going to abandon challenging the tip of the township. The other thing would be in the report, there is a history of the city of Huber Heights using what they call a non-school TIF. A non-school TIF simply means there's abatements in all other areas, but your property tax stays the same. So they don't reduce that. So there's no requirement that they get our approval on any of these agreements, as long as you're going to get 100% of the money due you. So if that holds out, that's actually good news. So, we may not be able to rely completely on their data, but whatever the actual is, it seems like we're going to get there.
Can you explain a little bit the differences between the community reinvestment area and the new community authority and like what all that kind of?
Let's start with the new one, okay?
Yeah.
The new community authority, that's basically a little mini government where there are trustees appointed to oversee the financial allocation and collection. There'll be certain members of city council. The developer will have certain members, and probably the township should have as well. In terms of moving that, they collect the money and they allocate the money accordingly. And that's where, when you read that little, portion, that's where there's the pledges there that we would get the amount of taxes. But we wouldn't get it necessarily from the county. We would get it from the new community authority. They will collect and distribute.
So would that only be Carriage Trail 2, or would they grandfather in Carriage Trail 1 into their little?
That's unknown. The strategy that they're talking about using, the new community authority, is only for Carriage Trail 2.
Okay, they can't.
Well,
Right.
I think the tip's in place so long, isn't it, already? And I don't think that they.
So they can't do that.
Well, unless they find deficiencies, a couple of the statutes say if you've already got finance mechanism in place, you can't add a second one on top of it.
What would be the benefit to them to doing one of these
If,
over something like a fifth that they've already done?
There has to be a benefit. They wouldn't
Well,
throw it
yeah,
out there.
there's gonna be
Yeah.
the.
Yeah,
it's really hard to say what the benefit is for any of these. It would be that the allocation of money is probably the best way. They collect the money, they allocate the money. If there's anything left over, and there could be money left over, they would keep it to assess valuation. If you go through both the community reinvestment areas, that's primarily for infrastructure, as is the TIF. The goal of these things for abatement would be that money is collected, and in this case, it would be the city of Huber Heights would spend money on the infrastructure. That's the primary difference between these two. A TIF is a little bit different. A TIF is where we should borrow against the assessed valuation, the increase in assessed valuation for purposes of, again, infrastructure. That's a borrowing mechanism. All three are complicated, and they've decided they're going to try to do two, combine two. The community reinvestment area and the new community authority. I'd be curious to see how that looks like. But again, as long as the pledge is there that Bethel Schools gets 100% of its property tax, then it is really, they don't need our approval. Or actually, they don't even tell us what they have in mind until they do that.
but I don't know, was it worded that we were gonna get 100%?
Well, nothing's worded yet because there's been no formal resolution, but that's what it states.
In
Yeah.
that
The
report.
plan
it does
is
say
in the
100%.
due diligence.
Okay,
That's why as we started, I think it's important to keep this communication going as possible with the city of Huber Heights as well as the developer and the schools to make sure that, you're up to date as much as possible with that information.
Julie had some information on some of that, so.
I do.
Well,
So I'm not an attorney.
but we know you're always right.
Yes. We don't argue
I
with
mean,
you.
if you read that due diligence report, it's like 150 pages, but only about 20, 30 or real content. So it looks like the CRA and the new, that was,
And our NCA,
it sounds to me like what they're gonna do is, so a TIF is equal to the tax that you normally get from like property taxes. But if you create the CRA and this new, whatever it is, it sounds like they're intending to double that tax basically. And that's how they're gonna fund that 20 million, say, they're gonna give us over the years. So it sounds like that's one of the advantages of having these CRAs and new.
yeah, that's what the NCA does. They can levy taxes for infrastructure purposes. Now, that won't affect the schools, but there should be some extra money there that deep in that, they talk about building a fire station.
Yeah,
Some
fire
of the other
station
things.
and giving money to us to construct the school.
Yes,
And hire extra police, I think,
And that-
that was,
Yeah.
but it sounds like they're gonna basically double the tax.
and that's where 20 million is.
On those, on the two carriage trips too only.
So basically, they're not gonna be out any money, just the people that are buying houses are gonna be out.
I'm just saying, this is my opinion
Yeah.
from reading the due
Uh-huh.
diligence.
Because I don't disagree with you. That's why they're going with those two as opposed to the TIF.
Thanks, Julie.
I've dealt with something similar in a past district, and I will tell you, I much prefer the collections going to the county auditor and being distributed.
yeah.
Because it's on a timely basis and you know when you're gonna get it. And I don't know if this is gonna be the case with this newly formed, but there were times where I was like, I'm gonna come pick up my check, right? And they would show up on June 30 with the check just to keep me happy. So, but they waited till the last minute of the fiscal year to hand it to me.
Well, plus you get
So-
advance sometimes.
Right, you can't
You're not
give
gonna get an
advances,
advance.
you can't do any
No.
of that. So you're pretty much at it's at their whim, whenever they wanna give you the money and you've gotta fight. And, not that I'm
Yeah.
afraid of a fight, it's just, why should I have to fight for our money, right?
Yeah.
So
I prefer it coming through the auditor. I just-
the auditor is
I
like,
just feel
it's
there's
a
more-
biased
there's-
third
there's more-
party,
There's
right?
more accountability and you can really trust those numbers.
Yeah, I mean, but if they do it, there's nothing,
We
we
can't
can't
do-
do
yeah.
much to stop it other than, hopefully they do their, yeah. We'll just have to.
Our last slide, these are recommendations of the administrative staff to the mayor and council. One, it is recommending that they put these two together. Ended up with a CRA as well as the NCA over this acreage. They're recommending that the new corporation fully reimburse the Bethel School District the monies it otherwise would have collected. So instead of the auditor giving us some money in tax advance, we'd be getting it from the new corporation. The city of Huber Heights is also recommending that the new corporation provide our schools about 20 million for the construction. Now, here's where it says specifically new elementary schools.
Hmm.
You know, again, that 20 million phased out over 30 years. I think it's about $600, 660,000.
I mean,
So you'd have to find a way to construct a school, borrow against, interesting, can you borrow against an NCA? Those are no questions that have to be sorted out.
Julie?
So just so you know, I pointed that out at the meeting after they published the due diligence meeting that, you know, it's great, we get a lot of money, but it's over 30 years, so it's not that valuable. And Mayor Gore said that they could front load it.
They could.
So they're willing to negotiate. I guess they would take the loan out and then it would guarantee, but you know, negotiating point.
That goes on your list, yeah.
It's on my list to ask.
Also, there,
Well, present value is much better, yes.
and again, they're also recommending that the developer donate land. And, you know, whether they hold the developer's feet to the fire. I would anticipate that your superintendent and treasurer would want to give some input to acreage, what they're looking for. You know, some of those sort of things as opposed to the developer saying, here's what you have. And the time to do that, of course, is before the development plan is complete. Then, again, from a revenue estimate, there's indicating that based on the property tax revenue, again, this does not include your earned income tax. There'd be $45 million in operation revenue over the first 15 years, staggered, of course. And another 10 million in direct capital revenues for a new school in the first 15, and the second will be paid in year 16 through 30. And hopefully we could get that up front. You would have to decide if the NRA is willing to give you 20 million, are they willing to let you spend it any way you want? Meaning, are you locked in to spending that money on a building in phase 2? Can you use that money for, your facilities here? In theory, they shouldn't care, because it should be, but on the other hand, in other places that have done something similar to this, having a school in the middle of development is a nice marketing tool. So the developer and the NRA may say this money is contingent upon a building here, not for the benefit of the 1,200 kids that are going to be coming out of development.
I mean, if there's dead set on an elementary school K through 2 and it doesn't meet our needs, do we?
Well, you're under no obligation, no. I
Yeah,
mean,
and they're under no obligation, if that's one of their caveats, right, that they want it to be a K through 2 elementary school, even though that's not serving.
I mean, well, as you know, the great configuration of schools can be whatever you want it to be. It can be a K5, can be a K8, it could be a 3 to 9. I mean, there's just no a true
Yeah.
junior high school and middle school. That's why the demographics of the first years of Carriage Phase 1 is important.
Yeah,
Because I mean, as you go through that, who moves into Carriage Hill phase 2, 15 years from now may not be nearly as relevant as the first 5 or 6 years. So,
But all of this will get agreed upon in contract when.
well, here's the
Great
thing,
development.
you're not privy to any of those agreements. I mean, they don't need our approval here. So it's a matter of talking to the individuals that we just identified as often as possible, and give as much input as possible, and hope that,
Get the best deal that you
get
can.
the best deal that you can.
But they wouldn't, they
Sure.
say they'll give us 18 acres or 20 or 30, whatever we need, that has to be in the contract, doesn't it?
Well, that'll show up in the development plan submitted for approval to Huber Heights City Council. That's when you'll see exactly what the specifics. You'll see the location, you'll see the acreage, you'll see the egress into that. Similar, you'll see whatever utilities, the street design, at least the main street designs will go in. So, you'll know exactly what sort of issues we have with buses. And while they may not redesign the development with our buses in mind, certainly when you plan on replacing your fleet for the next 15 years, those are some of the things you can look at as well. I know in those options. But it starts with a developmental plan submitted. I think there might be, Julie, you may know this. Did they submitted a preliminary developmental plan as part of the due diligence? I didn't see anything in there, no.
They had one for the first round, but they have not published one since they added the third.
I saw a rendering, which
Yeah.
is basically a picture, one
Yeah.
page picture, which isn't, of course, binding or all that helpful.
But so even if they approve the development plan, just say they gave us 18 acres for a K through 5 or whatever. There's nothing to say that they'll just start putting homes on it down the road if they find out that. I mean, are they locked into that once the plan is approved?
If the developmental plan is approved, okay, there's a process to change it that's rather difficult.
Oh, okay, so
Not
there is
impossible, but difficult.
some security for us, then at least we'll know that they can't change their mind or they weren't lying.
Yeah, you get some assurances, okay, on developmental plans. Again, they can be changed for good cause show. Environmental impact studies can change a developmental plan. You can find spotted owls or, some other endangered species. So there are some reasons that you can change the developmental plan. But I'm assuming that the city of Huber Heights wants a school in there as well. They want happy residents, just like you want happy residents.
So it's interesting, they're gonna give us 20 million, which will not cover a new school. For their students, I mean, for their residents, constituents, so then we will have to come up with the difference of this project. Funding to make the school in their development so that it looks good.
Well, again, the due diligence says is you're getting about $65 million, 45 million first year, the first 15 years in tax revenue, and then additional 20 phased out. And after year 15, you'll still get tax revenue. So they're assuming, like in any other development, that the cost of property taxes and year income tax should cover the cost of education. And as in most school districts, including this one, when you need building construction, it's usually a separate operating levy issue for those sort of things. So they won't feel obligated to cover 100% of the cost of facilities.
I mean, because we're still paying the bond for this.
I know.
Yeah, you're still paying this and then the financing for
For
the
the other one.
Yeah.
Well, and again, one thing, you'll need to make a determination of talking to administrative staff and maybe educational planners. What's the best facility configuration for the next 15 years for you? Is it a school there?
Right,
Or
or is it to keep it all
So,
central?
And I mean, I think for certain after watching Carriage Trail 1, these kids don't come in equal packages. So many first graders, so many second,
Right.
it's-
Yeah,
and then of course, the outdoor facilities. In phase 1, Julie, they put a park in, and I saw that in the rendering for phase 2. They also have park features as well. Is there any intel that's out there as to, other than green space, are they putting?
they didn't put a park in,
I thought
Well,
they were supposed to, it was on, but they didn't do that's one of the things
there's a
that.
water park by the Y, but it's not part of.
No, he means the Carriage Trail 2.0 rendering. So at a recent meeting, I couldn't tell you which one, but they did say their plan was to, if they donate the land, to put a park adjacent to the school, so it would kind of all be together. And, I've been suggesting since I was on the board to put it on the line between Carriage Trail 1.0 and 2.0, because then you get students from both sides. So now that's now their idea.
Of course it is.
And then to add the park next to it, which would kind of be good because then all that land would be together that the kids could go and play. But they just said that in the meeting, again, no contract.
So is that additional land or is that part of the 18 acres?
Additional.
School, okay.
Because when we met with the developer, because we'd asked for maybe a sports complex or something like that, where the kids can go and play, soccer, whatever I do. And he said they had talked about it, but that wasn't on the paper for him.
So, any questions first of all on what we just walked through?
No, thank you for
Yes,
doing
thank
that.
you very much.
Sure, in terms of next steps. Again, I think communications probably what you really want to do right now. You want to be on top of this. If you could go to city council meetings, listen to what they're doing in open session, that'd be great. I know that superintendent treasurer may go on talk to them privately. Again, not so much for binding commitments, but to get some sense. We should also be, as soon as we get preliminary drafts available for the development plan, you want to see that. I think that's important. We can do a Freedom of Information Act request as it's submitted, and hopefully we can establish some good relationships where that won't be necessary.
Yeah, and I did meet with the interim city manager of Beaver Heights. So the city mayor. And it was helpful, and he also emailed Tina, asked us a question, so I think, I mean. My recollection of this and the thing I've been around it, like in Dublin, Olentangy and Hilliard, I mean, it used to be all. For my 37, it was all farmland, and then things happen up there, and we think of the best thing that in my opinion, you can do, get open line of communication, get there early to the game and see, do what you can, best for you. So.
There was some talk, Jackie asked me to do some research. We block it, we block the annexation. At this point, it's doubtful. There's a couple of different schools of thought. Number one would be that the property owner has the right to develop his property consistent with zoning laws and ordinances. If there's an infrastructure issue, we are supposed to rely on the approval authority to determine that there is not safety issues, that there's congestion issues. Those are things that at this point in time will probably be sorted out by the city of Beaver Heights. And if they give approval that there is not congestion down 201, 202, there's adequate safety fire, it's difficult for us to kind of burst that. The second possibility to block this would be if we felt we're not doing everything right. So far, that's not the case. We're doing things by the book. I brought about 20 statutes, and it looks like they're following every one. So, you would have standing if they're not doing things correctly. It doesn't appear that that's the case at all. That could change, but for right now, frankly, we're spectators.
And even just the burden that they're putting on the school, I mean, that's apparently not illegal either.
Well, it is a burden, okay, but again, any school district that has explosive growth has the same burden. And I think as our superintendent said, you look at Powell, you look at Liberty, you look at Delaware, you look at some of those things. They went from farmland to 3 major high schools, in 10 years? So, I mean, it's explosive growth happens. And it's our job to anticipate, to plan, and to come up with strategies to accompany the kids.
And sometimes I work with you.
Well, the developer did tell us that the longer we string this along, and the longer he gets to fight it in court, the less money he'll have to offer.
Sure. Sure.
So on the flip side, what if we redistrict it back to Huber?
Well, Huber has to take it. Okay, we can't.
But what would the steps that we would have to take to do that? Because I would assume that we would have to start that ball.
Yeah, well, again, I know that some of you have already talked with representatives of the school district. If we have an.
Of Huber School District?
Yeah.
Who passed?
Hmm?
No, I don't think anybody's talking to Huber.
Is it totally?
Mhm.
Okay, not formally, which is something that has to happen. I'm under the impression that for the moment, the city of Huber Heights School District does not want property transfer to their school district. That's one of the things of our 3 meetings. I think you need to ascertain that. If they do want it, well, then you've got a decision to make. You want to allow it to go, or you want to challenge that. If they don't want it, then you may want to talk about possibilities that would make it more attractive for them to request a property transfer. But either way, if they wanted the property, they can initiate a property transfer request of their own. We can't file anything that says you have to take that, but we can certainly have dialogue with them if you think that's helpful. Is there any reason to think that Huber Heights would want them? Because they did want Carriage Trail 1, is my understanding.
They don't want it because it's not as attractive for the developer.
No, it's not.
they don't, those people don't want to go to either schools.
No.
And they're redistricting within their district already,
Mhm.
so they're trying to balance out their schools and stuff like that.
Yeah, as I recall, 15 years ago, number one, the selling point for Carriage Trail, one, people moving in was your school district.
Of course,
And I don't know that that's changed.
except that the school district has changed.
Yeah. that's
I
right.
mean, you know, that what they were selling is no longer really a reality, you know.
Even still, what they're selling is 20 years older.
Right.
But didn't, it wasn't a couple Huber Heights meetings ago, they had a study from their school district that said that they would totally be able to take them
Yeah,
and not have
that's-
a problem with it.
And that's not what we're hearing.
yeah, but that's what who said that? They said, we have plenty of room, we'd take them.
So you would have to decide if Huber Heights actually had an interest, whether you were okay with that as a school board, school district and school board, or whether you weren't okay.
But they'd have to take both then, right? They couldn't
No.
just take two,
No.
but they just take two?
Actually, they don't have to take this whole development either.
But I mean, if we
Right.
redistrict, because that was some more scuttlebutt talking, that they'd have to go through 1.0 to get to two.
Well, it has to be contiguous to their property line. And, you know, some of these things are like a snake. It doesn't take much, okay? But somewhere along the line, yeah, the property that they're proposing to transfer into the Huber Heights School District has to actually be contiguous to their school district property line.
It will be though if they annex, right?
No, the annexation has nothing to do with school district territory. They're separate,
Oh,
they're separate lines.
they're annexing out of township into the city.
Gotcha.
So that for
Yeah, that's
the school
municipal.
district,
So it'd be the Huber
Yes.
Heights School District has to butt up to our school. district.
Correct.
Is that what you're saying?
Well, again, if as a school board, you wanted to approach, find out a statement of interest from Huber Heights City Schools, you know, we could do that. You wanted, you wanted us to pursue that.
Plan on
I
it.
do.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I think we have to, we have to.
Yeah, I've got
look at all
those meetings, like
options.
the superintendent, the mayor,
Yeah,
and
so
the
it's,
developer.
yeah, that's,
Thank you.
I don't know anything about the superintendent, but I would say there's at least two people I wouldn't trust a word they said.
Yeah.
But no, but thank you for asking.
And after like hearing, going to the meetings and hearing, I'm convinced it's gonna. I don't see them.
Well, you mean the annexation, I think you're right.
Yeah, that'll happen, but
What kind of timeline are they on? I mean, they've got to be getting close to their.
It has to be done on,
Days.
I think they can extend to October 4th. They're talking about September. They're planning to have construction started no later, actually, they can do it in mid-December. But because of holidays, they're talking January 25, it's a relatively short fuse.
But annexation
But
has
that-
to be approved by October, right?
Yeah, but that's the annexation. Now, property transfer, okay, it's a little bit different. You know, there's contested, uncontested. And as part of an annexation agreement, if there was agreement between our district and Huber Heights, we could petition the State Board of Education for approval. It's different than the contested one. It has to be April of even years, and there's a 25 questions that have to be resolved in a hearing with a referee. But if it's a non-contested agreement, again, I don't know if there's any interest in that, you'll have to tell us. You also may need to be prepared, at least have a dialogue. Why would we do this? In other words, maybe Huber Heights is asking for something from you, to take this property, maybe they're looking for cash, maybe they're looking for some agreement, maybe a bus consortium contract, you know, there may be some things in there that Huber Heights may say, well, we don't want these kids, if you want us to take them, fill in the blank. I mean, those sort of things happen as well. A territory transfer agreement.
but we don't know if we want to ask.
Right.
No, and the other thing too, you're not going to know until they get a little bit more fleshed out, the exact revenue opportunities that you have as well. And I wouldn't, you don't want to lose sight of the fact that $45 million may help all the kids in Bethel, depending on how you use that. Doesn't necessarily have to be exclusively for the benefit of phase 2 students as well. And then you'd also have to I'll go through the implications. If phase 2 goes to Huber Heights, will phase 1 follow? That's the case, you lose 70% of your students. No reason to think that will happen, but, you know, again, that's a possibility also. That by giving phase two to the school district of Huber Heights, phase one will go with it.
But when the state look at that, and then would they even let us do that, because the building, I mean, the whole elementary.
It would be a problem, but not an insurmountable problem. You know, you'd have to convince the State Board of Education that that's in the best interest of students. Doubtful that they would agree with that, unless Huber Heights would have some sort of commitment. They may take 1,200 kids, but they may not have room for 2,400 kids.
Yeah, true.
But that is a possibility. The other possibility would be that, again, not all of phase one or phase two, and the spots will have to be transferred in totality. You know, they can be piecemeal parcel transfers. Somewhere along the line, there's a contiguous state.
Well, because that's that is the selling point for Parish Trails, we have to push on it, I think. I think we've got to push that. And it doesn't hurt to plan and be prepared, but we gotta try everything we can.
So our goal would be to try to see if Huber Heights City Schools has interest in the property.
2.0.
Okay. That's a clear marching order.
Yeah, I mean, those are our kids, that first development are our kids.
Right.
We're still trying to get everybody settled and. manage all
Well, yeah,
those.
you're not rejecting no.
No,
You're rejecting yes. Yeah.
yeah, I mean,
Yeah, here, yes.
we're trying to take care of our students in
And
our
I think we
district
have
that
to
we
look
got.
at all options.
And we still have development going on north of, I mean, within our township.
I was going to ask you
Anyway, we
that.
have big chunks of land that are being bought up and,
Okay,
but they're being developed within our parameters of 5 acres to it in a more reasonable way, but we're still growing. Anyway,
I was actually kind of surprised that they're trying to get 5 homes per acre.
Yeah.
An acre, that's. So, okay, are you clear?
I'm clear.
Are you clear?
Crystal, got it. Okay, Crystal. Crystal Clear. When on the meetings, is anything scheduled yet with you?
I have, I went to the mayor's office, I left 5 dates I can meet with them,
Okay.
next 6 days. Dates and times,
Excellent. So within a week.
so,
Well, that's,
and it's, no, I have no problem getting you, superintendent, I'm gonna have this conversation first. And then I'll talk to the developer. So, yeah. Busy, I'll do it.
all fronts covered.
And then Tina, are you gonna go with that or is your separate, what was what was the decision or what's the thought there?
I asked you if you want to go.
are you going to the meeting, Crystal?
Maybe Crystal will go. No, I would like to go, yes. 'cause,
I would
you
like,
know,
you know.
Yeah, like you.
So.
Yeah, cause Tina's got more of a story of them out there anyway.
Diana,
So, yeah.
well,
But yeah, I think, yeah, I mean, we'll get the meeting set up. I'll get the ball rolling anyway, so as soon as they get back to me, you know.
And then that will be a new discussion item on the future board.
Yes,
What happened, guys?
Again, both under a transparency mandate that you've given us, as well as following the sunshine law. There's not a lot you can do here at executive session. These are open conversations. If we get to the point where there's some litigation things to talk about in terms of statutory, there may be a limited window to talk about, you know, the property transfer request. And then, but for the moment, yeah, this is all open session. Dialogue.
It's good, thank you. I appreciate it.
Any other questions?
Yeah. Well, in general, you know, we've, I think in February, we passed a resolution saying we oppose annexation. So, you know, then we go in and it's all about planning and, when do you think really is the right time to do that? Because if you go in too early.
It's a real good question. I have a copy of your resolution if ever. County commissions would have approved it anyhow, you know, as you know. And so, you know, right now, I don't think you're early to doing everything you can to be proactive. I think that conceivably, at the August meeting of the council, this is done. developmental plan, is it submitted? You know, how many readings they have, and before you know it, so I would recommend that you stay on top. To find out as much information based on these questions as you can. It's also not too early, in my opinion, to have a conversation with schools. Because if that's what we want to do, the sooner we get that, the better, because that will make a difference, obviously, to both the developer and Huber Heights City as well. So, yeah, so from a strategy point of view, sometimes it's tough when you have to talk about this stuff in open session. You know, it'd be nice, but the truth of the matter is, it probably doesn't matter, because as soon as you talk to these individuals, you know, it's all public anyhow.
Yeah.
And will any of this help us for future annexations?
Probably not. You know, depends on the developer. If it's, these are annexation requests to the city of Huber Heights. You know, it may, of course, the school district will be the same, those two entities. I don't know whether this developer, other than Carriage Trail 1 and 2, has access to, you know, the rights or, you know, the options on any other property in the township. I don't know the answer to that. You, Julie?
I don't believe so. In the first contract, there was like a little paragraph, just like one liner that said, if, I'll probably blow this, I think it was kind of worded as if Huber requested it, the developer would have to come to them to get it annexed. So it was worded kind of strangely, but it was in the first contract. But unless, you know, there's no contract yet for this second phase, so don't know.
Do we feel strongly enough that you want us to take a look at any mechanism possible to block for leverage? Is that
Yes.
something?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
just Don't leave us alone.
Okay.
Leave me alone, Scott. Also there that they just let us be a little.
Well, this is,
You could give up my lawn. You don't-
Yes.
let's say, this is also a stage 2 annexation, which means the property actually stays in Hampton County
Right.
for jurisdiction as well. So we've got some things there. It's a matter of,
Which
Yeah.
is interesting to me that they can jump county lines.
Right.
I mean, it's like,
Yeah, that seems so wrong.
yeah.
Because they want to go north of 40 and then they had that moratorium.
they can jump county lines, they can take the collection action authority away from your auditor and treasurer. Well, these are relatively recent statutes in terms of modification. Ohio has taken a stance to encourage economic development. And so the tools are to encourage developers to come in, build facilities, build plant. These were intended frankly more for factories, you know, warehouses than it was for residents.
Yeah, like Vandalia.
Well, yeah, but
Right.
you know,
But it's
industrial
being used
parkways,
for, but it's being used a lot of times for.
it sure is.
I mean, and wasn't the house or wasn't somebody working on something about annexation? But didn't you guys talk about that at the last trustee meeting? If there was something going on at the state level that would affect annexation?
Well, we've been, I mean, the OTA, the Ohio Township Association, tries to get the laws changed so that we at least get a seat at the table, right?
nice.
So, because we have no say right now,
It won't help this, it won't be retroactively, but it may help future
Yeah.
developments.
but it's probably not gonna happen.
That's all I have.
Oh, thank you.
I just have one last question. Is there room to attend for 1 or 2 board members, or do you want that not to happen? Just to sit in? Like, eyes on the wall?
I'm just asking.
You're more than welcome to come. They can't have more than 2,
Yeah,
but
find it out, which ones are coming.
You could have,
I'm
if
sure.
you're doing 3 meetings, you have different combinations. of two.
Yeah.
no, I'm fine. I mean, I'm fine. with it. Dana, sure, you go with that? I mean, I think you look like you told you when I came here, right? It's your community, your values, but we help, but if you want to come, well,
Let me know if they're bringing legal counsel. I don't think they will. I think this is not that sort of meeting,
yeah, I'll
Not
let you.
yet.
not yet.
Yeah, I usually don't show up at the attorney's. legal, so. You're bringing your lawyer. I'm bringing a lawyer.
We're getting
I
nowhere.
got a lawyer, and I'm bringing a lawyer.
So your last question
Neither one.
was for clarity on how we felt about phase two. And it sounds like you weren't sure that we all felt the same way, that we'd rather than not be coming to Bethel. Are there more options that we maybe not, that we haven't, taken a look at yet, that you might be able to come across, or no?
It's a good question, and I don't know the answer to that. You know, what I heard today, is that we would prefer that, phase two, residents not send their kids to our schools. So now our task is to find some ways where maybe we can accomplish that. You know, again, I asked that question 5 times. It's a big decision. And I wanted to make sure we all understand the ramifications of that. So I think the best strategy for the moment is let's start with Huber Heights City Schools. Let's see what their intentions are. If not, phase two, of course, would be, let's make sure they're doing everything right. And then let's see if we can find a way to slow the process down, because time is money. There may be some things that we can do, maybe some challenges, if that's what we want to accomplish. So let's take a look at that. Also, I want to make sure everyone understands too, I'm really good at what I do. I'm not an annexation lawyer, so you need to understand, I may talk to 1 or 2 people who absolutely understand everything about municipal annexation, about some of the things that you brought up today. No ego, I'm not the best person for the job. I guess I'm always so good at what.
Everybody got to stay in their lane, John.
It's not an ego thing here.
No, I know.
Property
Well, it's like
transfer,
we do
property
tax.
transfers are not, annexation agreements, we don't do
Yeah.
as a board of ed. So I'll find out. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
And when we set the meetings up, I'll let you know, like how you want to proceed, because there are going to be certain times of day, I don't know what everybody's availability is. But I'm not okay. I understand.
He's in an attic or a crawl space.
Yeah,
And then-
we'll do it and I'll send it out.
Mhm.
Yeah, somebody can come. I get it, yeah. But yeah,
Maybe you'll have a meeting, you'll have something
Maybe.
over at their school or
Maybe so.
something. Nice city building. And have them get in on their new building. They're gonna- For themselves, so.
yeah, I'll do that. Okay.
Just one question. Are you still using the same architect? Who want to talk to someone about facilities and planning? Typically, your educational architects are pretty good at that. The reason we should couldn't talk to the same architect with some ideas.
Is it Garmin?
Did we go with that again?
Same,
You
you
still
the
like
same
it?
one that did this building and that building, that none of us are.
No, this one was done by someone different.
Okay.
That's why I'm asking the question. As I recall, not everyone was thrilled with every aspect.
We got 2 good architect firms to deal with education, FMD and Elbar. Elbar's in Cincinnati. And
I'd be up for trying someone new.
FMD up in Akron, but Elbar is top notch.
Yeah, I didn't think Garvin Miller did us any favors, but that's just my.
No, that's a good point there, John. I mean, we have access to architects and the owner's name's Tom Fernandez. Actually, he
Do
built,
you have to put on a request for proposals on architects? No, because we don't have a project.
That's correct. Yes,
Okay.
you don't need engineer stamp. You need-
Right. Okay,
We're just-
just making sure,
Yeah, well, we're just talking right now. Now,
right,
if it comes to design, that's different.
right, once, yeah.
I said, no, I said, Tom's a friend of mine, just a question.
It's just like,
Yeah.
Tom, so what if?
Here's the deal.
Can I come see where I'm working?
So we're in agreement then too, is to go with the LRB or?
Elbar, we can ask the question. I mean, John brings up a good point. If you're happy with, I mean, you gotta, you got the whole 21st century, you got all these different, different things that architects do, right?
Yeah,
They deal with schools and they would be a good source of information.
21st century is kind of a bad word.
Yeah, I don't, well, I not know that, but it's a kind of a bad word in a lot of places across the state.
Now it is.
They thought it was really cool.
They thought it
A
was
lot of
cool, but
PTSD around that.
yeah, but now they're not so happy.
When you
with-
look at it, I think that's really not a great idea.
Yeah.
That's really bad.
Yeah, it'd be good to get some input from somebody there front.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, that's something that we can do as we make this journey.
Now, would they also be able to answer questions about expanding, just like how we're gonna fit the people in right now? What we're gonna do?
They'll give you ideas of how you can.
Yeah.
How you can educate 150 new kids. You don't have to, right now you start with ground zero, and that's what you want to ask them. You know, starts with the demographics.
Mhm.
How many acres do we have behind the K5 building? Do we know?
How many left?
You know,
I have to look.
I mean, there's enough to put there's not enough for a new school, is there back there?
Yeah,
But
there's-
they had like 100 acres.
Yeah.
It's like, is that's the area that's being farmed currently, right?
Yeah, but with the lease,
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I think it's a little over 30, if memory serves.
30 left.
It's gotta be more than that.
Yeah.
It's gotta be more than 30.
I think that's what's farmed.
That's, okay, yeah, so there's more in addition.
Uh-huh.
Well, there's.
I've never walked back here, I don't get my hiking boots, we can't really my shoes.
Thornton County, Bethel has 126 acres.
Oh, okay, no, this right here,
Yeah, and it goes quite a bit down Eagle Broad.
okay.
Yeah,
More than that.
All right,
Yeah.
so-
They bought that 100.
it's
So you got
like.
land.
And all the way to the
All
wire
the
now,
way
right?
down.
All of these, and then 5 over here. Yeah, you have to add. Like,
The last question, what does our strategic plan say about the K5, the elementary building? What are we doing with it?
We're working on the strategic.
Yeah, we've got a lot of,
Okay, no plans yet for the old building?
not long term.
We are trying to get more of a facilities, like long-term land use facility plan together
Yeah. It's smart.
because of.
Because of stuff like that.
Program.
Yeah.
Okay. Talk about-
Thank you.
Great
Go
discussion.
back, sit in the audience until.
There you go.
Thank you, George. And stop the clock. Crystal, stop the
That's
clock.
right. All right.
Right, so that puts us into public participation is the next.
Yeah, just a real quick update on public participation. We have a policy and got looking at it. I just wanted to bring it up at the work session here. You know, it'd be my recommendation is to do one public participation policy and do it at the beginning. I know we had agenda items only and then other items, but if they come up and want to talk about other items, you know, that's not on the agenda, because you let them talk anyway. So, I mean, the policy is like everybody gets 5 minutes and you got an hour total. And I'm not sure if the timer is 5 minutes and that is, but it's a 5-minute timer.
It is, Julie gave me the tip today. So this is a 5-minute.
There you go. Perfect.
And Bethel Brewing are close to it.
You want to share that?
I'll take it.
One of the
I'll take it.
variations of.
That was just, I just thought, you know, I mean, I've
Just you
been to
wanted to,
1,000 board meetings. I mean, just if it's a problem, you don't want to do it, that's fine too. But I'm thinking, you know, to move things along, I don't think historically, when I've, you know, if I want to put an executive session at the end or public participation at the end, and I made everybody sit through the whole meeting just because I was getting spiteful. They're usually more mad when they get up to talk anyway. So, you know, but if, it just seems to make things move a little faster. Yeah.
The only thing is then, people don't have the opportunity at the end of the meeting to comment about things that they heard along the way. It kind of limits that, ability to maybe
Sure.
speak about that. They may not know, or, you know, have all the context or know what we're gonna talk about or know what our final vote is gonna be. And it does give them an opportunity to come forward at the end and maybe speak on that. When I attend meetings, sometimes I talk during things that I know that I'd like to say something that before the council votes on it or the trustees vote on it, I make that known and then, I can come back later and talk about anything else that either was on the agenda that I saw voted on or something different that's not on target, just something other that's going on. And I think early on, if everybody, I can appreciate also, because I've waited to the end on many accounts, at all the different meetings that I attend, but I think that it also can, yeah, you're right, you do have an hour, but it can really bog down the business that we're here to do if everybody comes up at one time. And maybe we're not as attentive then because we're like, okay, well, was that for the agenda, so I prefer both from the meetings that I've attended, and that's the reasons why.
So
I
you
choose
wanted
that.
the end.
Yeah, I mean, the previous board had gotten rid of.
All
of it.
Or-
No, they didn't get rid of all of
They-
it.
yeah.
No, they did not. There was
Oh,
at
just the
least,
one at the end, that's what it
Yeah.
was.
there was
I mean,
only.
it's felt like they got rid of it. Mhm.
The
The agenda, the one on the
agenda.
agenda.
And they took off old business, didn't they?
Yeah,
Yes.
Yeah.
Who's going to leave it?
I think we need to leave it.
That's
I mean,
fine with me. I would just say, just some things I'd talk about at the work session, because I don't have a lot of work session. Be there. Instead of board meeting. But your meeting.
Yeah, there's some history.
Again. And then someone was, the next one was student recognition. And I talked to, I know that, we have a policy on student recognition too. And come September, I'd like to start bringing in some kids, being recognized from their administrator, or teacher, for that. So, some good things that's going on here.
Yeah, that'd be great.
So would it be part of like an awards program?
Yeah, what happens usually is in the beginning of the meeting, because I don't want sometimes the parents come up and.
Kids don't wanna stay.
2 or 3 hours, especially on school instead. But usually they come in the beginning, we call the meeting, we recognize the, the students, and we explain why they're here and recognize them, and then they want to stay, they can stay, and they want to go home, they go home.
It could be for any reason. It could be just as simple as.
I'm gonna talk to the administrative team when they get here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
like-
Set the parameters.
Some
Yeah.
parameters and things, I want to know, what I have my own ideas, but know what they think, and then, obviously we'll do it all this because it's too soon.
Right.
In September, bring them in, recognize what we got, so.
That's awesome.
That's great.
Yeah, so I want to showcase the kid, and that's what it's all about. At the end of the day,
Yeah.
that's what it's all about. Like I talked to the choir director, band director today about playing some music at the opening day.
Oh,
like
yeah.
song,
Awesome.
Guardians of the Galaxy and
Cool.
stuff they're working on. Right?
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. Pretty neat.
That will be.
So, yeah, I mean, those are the kinds of things. That's what, I know there's a lot of business that goes on in school. Lived it my entire life, but my point being is, there's a lot of good stuff that people don't see.
Right.
Kids need to be recognized, and it's, at the end of the day, that's what we're here for.
Yeah.
And that's what I was wondering, it's not just like all the kids who got A+ for it, or it's,
No,
it could be any.
no, you would get like one, one kid from the middle school, kid from, kid from high school, kid from,
But it could be multiple things.
Could be
Maybe
multitude of
they
things.
created some kind of project in class
Mhm.
or had the best project. or-
yeah, maybe it's somebody that wouldn't get recognized, maybe it's not.
Right.
Arts and music, maybe it's something different.
Right.
The
Those
volunteer
kinds
who's
of
done
things,
100 hours or
Right,
something,
Yeah,
yeah.
that kind of stuff. So,
Always improvement. So.
yeah, I want to talk, like I said, I want to talk to the building administrator and get here and explain to them for the administrator, say, what is it? What some things that you can do, they do well,
Oh, brilliant.
so.
Yeah.
let's do that.
That's great.
Definitely what we're about,
Yeah.
you want to be about.
Yeah, like I said, I know there's a lot of this that goes on throughout the course of a year, and there's a lot of politics in schools and this and that, going through, but in the day, it's kids.
And they're doing like things.
They
I like to hear.
They are, and we don't want anything so overshadowed.
Yeah, there are great things going on in the Hive, but you wouldn't know it if you just came to the board meeting sometimes.
Yeah, so, yeah, and I get that, and so
Yeah,
I've had 140 meetings, but some of
But
them
to-
longer than others, and
Yeah.
some in new locations, but. But yeah,
but yeah, that's what we need to talk about. That's great.
Yeah.
So-
Thank you.
yeah,
Excellent.
so we'll start doing that in September. we'll keep the agenda item the same for public participation for those reasons. And that's what I've got.
Okay. So we did have one request to talk, but Julie said she just wanted to.
I was wrong.
Okay, we'll look at the time,
Okay.
You're looking first.
All right, thank you for allowing me to speak. What's your name? I was wondering the reason for the salary schedule advancement. That was my one thing. I just want to say I'm extremely disappointed that 5 new administrators have been hired in the past few meetings without establishing a vision for the district and a higher plan based on need, not just rhetoric and student numbers. I got a bunch of stuff on annexation. I didn't write on it, so I saved some of it. So just a couple informational things. When we committed to the ELTP program, the intended use of the old school, K-5, was to backfill with students from the Carriage Trails 2.0 project until the ELPP turned into OFCC funding and we could construct classroom space, which we know would have taken 3 years. So that the kids that were estimated to come at the time should have fit into that building. But now we have some extra programs, so that may not be the case, but that was the intention. And then, of course, eventually the old school will no longer be eligible for educational use. The city inclusive nature that you guys asked about, of course, everybody at the next meeting jumped up and said, what's this? It was addressed by Mayor Gore in the meeting following the publishing of the due diligence report. All the Heber Heights meetings are recorded, video and audio, and you can watch those on the Heber site. I did not get a clear answer for what that meant about the city inclusive nature, but you can go watch that video. For the elementary school, you guys asked about, that's kind of what Heber Heights has been talking about. The 18 acres comes from the state requirement for how many acres you have to have for the 600 to 700 student size school. So we pretty much only talked about an elementary school going there even back when I was on the board. Because we were told that it was best if you were going to have multiple schools that funneled into one school, then the ones that are divided you want to be as young as possible. So you might have multiple elementary schools that funnel up into 1 or 2 middle school that funnel up into a high school. I know this is not always the case, but that's what we were told at the time. And also, an elementary school there would provide the kids with a place to go and play and, you know, because it would have a playground. High school takes a lot more acreage. I'm not sure that they'd be willing to donate that kind of acreage because we have to have, I mean, the reason for following up too is that the elementary school is probably the cheapest to, I mean, you have a playground. But you get the middle school and high school, now you have stadiums and tracks and all the sporting stuff that gets tied in. So that was kind of the logic behind the elementary, and that's why they focused on that. I don't know where they got the 600 to 700 students. That might be based on what they're predicting will be the mix of kids that those parents will have.
So just for clarification, go ahead.
Yes.
Okay, go ahead. No, so the past board that you were on, it was thinking neighborhood elementary schools. So that would be, you would redistrict and say that redistrict lines as far as these kids here would go to this elementary and these kids here would go to this elementary.
Well, at the time, yes, but maybe not. If 71% of the school is already there, then maybe we take the few students we have up here and make that the entire elementary school.
Yeah.
I don't know, but not with 600 to 700 kids, you couldn't. I don't know, but at the time, yes, it was gonna be, we didn't know K through 3, maybe K through 5. I didn't know. Okay, so this is a question for, can we block it by suing based on the fact that the annexation laws in Ohio are unjust and we have no vote in the say of the future of our township? Like a civil rights violation or discrimination?
Thanks, Rachel.
That's good for Fred.
Just, you know, throwing an idea out. And then the fact that it's talked about maybe giving them something back if they would take the kids in CP 2.0. Really, they shouldn't be asking for anything if they take the kids because they state over and over how lucky we are to get all of this revenue that comes with those kids. So
So
if
they
it's
get
good for
good,
us, it should be good
good
enough
for them.
I believe there are some school districts nearby that may not be contiguous. I'm not sure about that, but I've heard down like north of Dayton, there's somewhere streets, like an actual street might be a little bit. So just want to mention that. This is a part for Tina, Huber Heights has stated in their meeting that the tax revenue, the estimate that they get from the county, there's a discrepancy between that and what we talk about at the monthly meetings here. So I just wanted to warn you about that. I'm not sure because they throw out way bigger numbers than we have. So that one. So I've been going and speaking at most of the Huber Heights meetings against the annexation, of course. I did ask at one of the meetings if they would be willing to exclude the Huber Heights city income tax for employees who work at a school that would be donated on that land. So you can put that on your list for Huber because they said they could probably do that. They didn't commit to it, but you know, we don't want our teachers and staff to have to pay that 2.5%. So I did bring that up in public and it is on tape.
Because they don't pay it when they come, when they work here, they don't pay an income tax, right? Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm saying if we donate land and build a school there,
Right.
does the staff that works there, they work on Huber Heights then, and they would have to pay that income tax.
They're saying.
So we need to ask for an exception in
Right.
perpetuity to say, this is Bethel land.
Right.
I mean, it's not Bethel land.
Yeah.
but
Right, I see what you're
They
saying.
work for Bethel School,
Right.
so no income
Right.
tax. So about the meeting, Mayor Gore mentioned this meeting that the superintendent had contacted him for a meeting. I would suggest definitely that not only superintendent and treasurer go, but someone with some history, because they will tell you things that may not be true.
That's good. I made the meeting.
And I would meet with the developer separately.
Agreed.
Was that yesterday's one? Or what meeting was this?
So the last week, the special meeting conflicted with a regularly scheduled township meeting. It forces the residents to choose between the meetings. We at the township intentionally schedule our meetings for the Tuesdays that the BOE did not choose. So I asked that you please try not to schedule special meetings on Tuesdays when the township does have their meetings. Thank you.
I gave you a few extra minutes because I took some, so.
Dangerously close. Right, next up is, we really did.
Agenda.
Typically where Matt goes through the agenda.
That's gonna typically, I usually do the work sessions. You're gonna go over this agenda, correct?
Right,
Discussion. Okay.
so,
So. Roll call, pledge allegiance to agenda, minutes, public participation. Discussed. Treasurer's report.
I'm still working on a few things, for the final year-end report and all of that, so I will have it out there for you. I've got a few things out there, but not everything, so hope to have that all completed soon. And then, you know, of course, the check registers out there, and I did have to make an adjustment on final appropriation, so this is final two. Yeah. Only because my estimate was off $3,000 for food service. Something came in and needed to be paid. And so I was off by $3,000. And since it's more, I need your approval. So, and then we did have to do some transfers, or advances in federal funds, because I can't end the year in a negative on grants.
Yeah.
So I missed, we had additional checks that went out at the end of June, and I would rather get them paid in the current fiscal year. So I have to make these transfers, so. Your turn, so.
Alright. And superintendent's report, so we got, so I mentioned a little this earlier, we've got new staff orientation, August 8th. Bring the new staff in, teacher work day will be August 12th. And I just want to talk about bringing the training, some of them in. Typically invite a couple of board members, somebody wants to come to that, let me know. you know, he's a board president, board vice president. If you're
Yeah.
interested, please let me know that. We've got sixth grade orientation, we've got, our in-service days from the 13th to the 16th. I asked this question earlier today, like some counties, the county fair is a big deal. And where I come from, it was a big deal, and we didn't touch our school, or we waited till the county fair was over before we started school. So I anticipate some pushback on that, and I just was curious if I was right.
Yeah,
Well, yeah, but it already happened and then they went, they
Yes.
couldn't negotiate it. It happened 2 years in a row,
so your answer is yes, there will be pushback.
Okay,
and there was.
yeah, well, that's,
And there was-
okay,
Yeah,
because I was,
There's a calendar committee.
yeah, okay, but I just was, you know, I was-
involved in
I was looking at, going, yeah, and I'm like, I mean, but I was curious if, I mean, we can make adjustments next year. I just think that it seems like a good idea.
We agree.
Yeah,
I mean,
I agree.
Okay.
I'm not
Yeah.
speaking
It looks like it's sort of unanimous. I just, when I was in Champaign County, like we waited till the county fair was over before the school started,
yeah,
Right.
you know, and you know, in Columbus, we don't care when. You know, it's just, my point being is, you know where you're at, right?
Right.
And you're
Yeah, because we
demographic.
got kids that show animals.
But you got kids that show animals, you've got, you know, they sell, you know, they do a lot of things throughout the year to get ready for that. And then, you know, if their parents or teachers or things like that, then they gotta be here and you know, there. I was just curious if, because I just could see down the road, when the
Yes.
fair started, my phone rang.
yeah, historically, we started after
After.
the
Right.
fair was over.
It's just the last 2
This
years.
has just been a
Okay.
recent.
Interesting. Yeah, because I mean, that's, I mean, hours are hours, your school day's long, plenty long enough.
Mhm.
So you can start after, and I just wanted to ask that question. So. Then you got the first day back, for all kids, and then, you know, obviously it's staggered, no school on Labor Day.
Yeah.
You know, like I said, we talked a little bit about Convocation Day, on the opening day, I'll have that agenda, and work on that with Shelley. You know, we're gonna have the staff in, talk about a few things, you know, hopefully. We feel good meeting, everybody's excited to come back and get started and do good things, kids that we send out to the building, right? So, and I've got a meeting, you know, from my report, and just some things will come up next week, I'll give you updates on it, but I've got a meeting with the ESC superintendent tomorrow on these special ed units that are moving in. I've already been to his office the day before yesterday. I've got meeting with the union tomorrow.
The new-
I'm
The
meeting
new
with,
one or the?
was it, no,
You, oh, you. Oh, you.
And the
In
big kid.
trouble.
big thing's coming, right? Yeah. I've got a meeting with Neola Thursday. So, you know, I see the updates, you know, usually do a first reading, second reading. You know, he's updated these, I can see in the board docs, you know, 4 weeks, 5 weeks ago. So I've got a meeting with him and they're on this agenda. But usually what happens is, you know, we can put a policy committee together with a board member or two, you know, I talked a little bit about this as well, having superintendent committees as opposed to board committee. That's something that I've done in the past. I don't care how you do it, if you want to do that. But usually what happens is you meet with me on the different topics and then you report out. It's short. Instead of having a separate meeting before the board.
That's out of sunshine law, that's outside of that.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's something to think about. You can cover more ground that way, I think. You know, we spend some time together during the day or the evening instructing it, then you can report. It's up to you. That you don't have to decide now, but the policy itself, when I meet with him, I'll look at those policies. And what we had and what we go through, and then, you know, the first read, we can have the discussion next week. Like I said, it's highlighted.
So is the purpose of the first reading since we don't have a house right now, but or even when we had a committee, that the committee or us will look at it during the first reading and then.
We usually go with the first reading, make adjustments, then we had a second reading, you pass it.
Because the second reading should be good to go, right? Because we've already
You've already
discussed
hashed
through
it.
everything else.
So. I met with the captain today from Miami, from Miami County Sheriff's Office. The SRO's coming over. We have 2 SROs this year. One at the elementary, Legion Choir. She's coming over Thursday to meet with me. They haven't filled the high school, middle school position yet. We're working on it. So, the executive director at the YMCA, I met with him, he made me do a convocation day as well, I brought some things out, staff. I spent some time with Kathy today on transportation, and things out, and, I will work on your strategic plan. You know, I talked to you about that, and put those together for districts larger than me, that's something I can help you with, and put that together. And so talked about convocation day, staff orientation, those are, and stop by the mayor here and all with these meetings scheduled. So those are the kind of things that are, we're working.
But we also discussed, if you guys don't want me to work on the strat plan, you'd rather hire somebody, then you need to say something. But
I don't wanna hire someone, but I think it needs to be better.
oh, yeah,
Well, when I put them together before, it was community members, board members, me. But I, you know, like I told you before, like the one I did greens for, I mean, it was. I need people that have been here and understand.
Right.
You know, and some new folks too, right? What's your vision?
Yeah.
It's not my plan. You know, I mean, I can guide it, I can give suggestions and input, I didn't grow up here. Not from here, you know, what I mean,
Yeah.
but I've always done that. I've done it before and I offered to do it, so you don't have to pay for it.
Yeah.
They're $20,000-$30,000 and when
Yes.
or more.
And-
Yeah, yeah.
and when I did have somebody pay for it, and it didn't work anyway.
Yeah.
They stood there, they, can you put this meeting together, that meeting, I'm like. why would they-
Well, then, yeah, why are they?
So, yeah, it's not me doing it.
Right, and I think you're already working with a lot of the parents and.
You're already working, I'm
residents.
already working with parents, I don't know how many parents, actually, you know, and you're working with the sheriff's office, you know. I stopped by the Huber Heights Police Department for some affected, because they control that part over there. And they, when there's an issue, they come here and they gotta work with Miami County, Huber Heights, I mean, so there's a lot of. moving
Some
parts.
of them parts.
So, but I think, yeah, I mean, that is, you know, from, you know, community members and you know, businesses, you know, things like that, it's all part of that plan.
It's great.
You know, just like, it's like when, you know, income tax and, you know, levy and those things, you put some maybe people together and, you know, say a campaign, but it's information. And, one of the.
Wait a minute, oh,
Yeah.
go ahead now.
No, I didn't mean to, I thought you were done, I apologize. I was gonna ask, maybe a suggestion, could we add the CTC junior and senior start dates for them? The
Yes.
Monday, the 12th is when the juniors start, and then the seniors start on the 13th. So those parents can be tracking as well, they
Thank you.
probably are, but.
No. Like to include them. Got it. Yeah, thanks.
Sorry, didn't mean to.
No, you're fine. You're
I thought you
fine.
were done with that payment.
And we had a resignation today too, so the Randy Anderson, who we hired, who was pretty good, be a very special, she resigned.
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and so that is see, I think that Jennifer's report, we've got policy, we've got there's one, the aid is a step up, verify experience and education.
So Brandy's gonna be our reading specialist, correct?
Brandy was going to be our.
The little.
At the middle school, yes.
So now you gotta go back out and re-advertise.
Yeah.
I think Mrs. Farron took everybody that was listed as an applicant and forwarded that again to the principal and assistant principal and said, do you have a second, third pick, or where do you want to go from here? So that information's already been provided.
Oh,
So it
thank
may
you.
happen real quickly and then
We hope.
typical.
I hope so.
I hope there was somebody they had, you know, that is available. The problem is if they're under contract now, it's gonna be July 10th. I think. I mean, waited their last day.
It's gonna be hard, yeah.
So,
Wow.
I had a couple of questions,
Yeah.
not about that, but about a couple of these other things.
yeah,
So, the credit recovery teacher, who's currently?
Quincell,
Quinzel, yeah,
Quinzel.
who's currently
So-
doing that?
Nobody, this is the new credit recovery class, I
so
think.
Dre that went.
Dre was doing
Who
all
was there, went to in-school suspension,
Yes, that's right, it's still suspension.
which we didn't have.
But we haven't hired anybody.
Dre's gonna go to in-school suspension.
He was just an internal transfer.
Yeah. Same salary, he was labeled in that classification.
But I thought that the in-school suspension, we wanted a teacher in there.
Well, you really want a teacher in Apex at credit recovery. That was why I put him there, because he was a math teacher. And Dre wasn't a teacher.
Yeah, I can see that, Ed can discuss what they're struggling.
On the
with.
credit
Yeah.
recovery side of Apex.
Oh, so this is the kids who are struggling to graduate, that credit recovery?
Mhm.
Oh, my.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
math is
In this
like
one of the teaching positions you guys approved for this year?
The
For
credit
next year?
recovery,
Approved it for this year. It's this year.
I actually think that happened in December.
Okay.
When the last board.
Oh.
that wasn't one of ours.
It was not one of ours.
Okay.
That's kind of what I recall.
I think that's when they put it into, take out November, December.
And coach grade. It's like you got multiple.
It's gonna go over to ISS.
Coach, right?
We don't, that doesn't come to the board because it's just a lateral transfer.
Yeah, no additional funds or.
Not changing salary.
No. Just other duties as assigned,
Fine.
kind of thing.
Just an internal transfer.
Yeah.
And that's what we had talked about a pretty specific kind of person for that in-school suspension monitor. And so that's not
What
what.
did you talk about, Matt? I mean,
Yeah.
it wasn't,
Yeah.
yeah, that's something.
Right,
Well,
yeah.
I don't know, I mean, like I said, there was a recommendation I got, I mean, it was internal transfer, they wanted to push Dre to ISS, which a position was created. Which I wasn't here for, and they wanted Wetzel to be the Apex recovery teacher.
Who's that? Who's that?
High school principal, the administrators and. Well, a lot of it, Bear. Well,
Yeah, well, that's a given. I mean, I think. That's great.
Good to have ISS.
Hmm.
Good to have ISS.
oh yeah, I was surprised that you didn't have it. when I got
We
it.
did a long time ago. I was the ISS supervisor.
Okay,
They were in my back room.
yeah, I mean, most districts have, we've had ISS, OSS, I mean, it's something all at your disposal, right? You got
Yeah.
Saturday school conventions, things we can punch out.
Is he gonna do after school and something too? Do you know?
He said he was still doing it,
It's right.
Bear said they're still doing it.
Oh, but not, because.
His grades gotta go back, football
He
practice.
goes football practice.
Yeah, I don't know who's doing it, they said they were still doing Saturday school, after school detention.
But will those go away if we have in-school suspension?
No.
But they'll just be enforced.
And be an additional option.
Option. So he's
Well, I
gonna,
think some of the students thought it was an option. That's what I'm saying. And so,
no, I mean, this should be the first year for ISS.
oh yeah, ISS, but I mean Saturday detention, they have housing, when people working with.
Well, that's a conversation I have to have with my. Yeah, that's a. Superintendent.
Yeah.
Conversation. And then, that's pretty simple.
No, no one, is if we
That's
say we're
not,
gonna
that's
do
not
it, we do it.
complicated. So,
Okay.
like, it's common sense, like education, so. Makes sense.
But just so I make sure we answer Julie's first question. This is because we got her information back and she has more years experience, so we gave her additional stuff.
Yeah, they get the,
Morgan,
they do the verification process.
We like to hire them low, just so we don't have to go back and tell them we're gonna have to adjust your income down. That way we can say, oh, we're gonna adjust your income high, and we all come out looking good.
it was
So.
And that's my stuff.
Okay. There you go.
Class fees, we're still working on.
So, yeah, so handbooks and class fees, and we. So. The handbooks, My understanding, the handbooks were sent to the printers without the code of conduct. But the copy I have of the handbook, the code of conduct in the handbook.
We didn't approve that, we didn't.
You didn't approve a handbook or code of conduct.
Right,
Good. That was my understanding as well.
Yeah.
correct.
So I'm gonna get all that cleaned up. I'm gonna address some things in the code of conduct. And I'll get the handbook done. And I'll give it to you before school. And we'll get that thing approved.
And are we gonna make sure that like our cell phone policy and all that good jazz is in
Yes.
there?
All that, yeah.
Thank you, all the jazz.
All the
Yeah.
Good jazz.
We're gonna jazzalize
Yeah,
it.
we're gonna get it all fixed how we want. And get it back to you.
Real quick on that, I just wanted to ask, so, because I was gone for some, I just wondered, where did all the notes come from? I just don't recall.
That's what, I think that's what the administrators put in initially, saying that these were the 3 changes they were gonna.
That's it.
I mean, like, right, okay, so.
Yeah, I just couldn't remember.
So,
Yeah,
yeah, so here you got this,
yeah,
that's what you got.
Yeah.
So these are the updates and changes to him, but what they wanted.
right.
I
But,
just
but
couldn't
they've
recall.
already printed it, so.
I didn't say that it doesn't make sense. I stuff and fix it.
And then so while we're fixing things, will they all be standardized?
We're going to get them as standardized as we can.
Yeah,
And I understand
For the-
this year is
for the
just
grade
get it,
right.
yeah.
But, I mean, there's certain things that happen in middle school that don't happen in elementary,
Mhm.
in high school,
Mhm.
but I mean,
but they can all look the
they can
same.
look good, right?
Right.
Yeah.
A little bit
They
of
can all have the
consistency.
same,
Yes.
Right, verbiage and
Yes.
Yeah.
Table of the look
How about
to.
the same font, the same B, I mean, come on,
How about the same font in the actual
the actual
document?
document, I know, I saw
One
that.
font, just one.
Okay, well, good, I'm glad you're.
Honored.
They're all here, save handbooks, when I have some spare time in my office, I read handbooks.
It's good reading.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Between parent phone calls.
Look at mine, because I went through it too,
Yeah.
pretty detailed, and I made all kinds of things, so, yeah.
Well, then I can just call you.
Yeah.
Let me have your copy.
Yeah, don't read it, don't read
I
it.
can have my copy.
Exactly. Give it to me, so I don't miss anything,
How
there's a lot of reading,
about if we spell the words correct?
well, you know, it's always a start.
Yeah,
But like I said,
you're working
it's a
on
late
it.
entry and I wondered, it didn't make a lot of sense to me, but you know, the code of conduct, I noticed it was pulled from the agenda, which was good.
Yeah.
And
So Regan had a good idea too about putting on a chart about the hours, because they talk about the, half day, full day absence and all that kind of good jazz, so she had a.
But actually, attendance is by hours,
Yeah.
by minutes, down to the minutes, and parents don't understand that every time you pull your kid out 2 hours early. It's 2 hours, I mean, that's accumulating absence.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because it's not, because there's talking days in the policy,
Right,
but that's not,
it's not really.
410 is minutes.
Mhm.
And unless it's changed, Bethel does it to the minute.
No, we do,
Yeah,
as far as I know, we do, yeah.
yeah, so
It's by hours.
just a little chart,
Just
so then
hours.
when they get their letter that says your child has excessive absences.
10 days.
You know, they're losing it. And you can have an approved vacation. But it's still counting against your excessive absence, so when you get home from that great vacation, you're gonna have a letter that says your child's been excessively absent.
Right,
Because they have been, so, I think if it was just.
because the state doesn't recognize an approved vacation.
No,
as
as a valid
for not
reason,
being in school.
yeah.
Yes.
And if you don't want those absences to count, when you go to the doctor, bring the note in.
Yes.
That's the only way it's gonna be wiped out or not count. is
Right.
If you actually bring the note. So I think if that was spelled out, just really bulleted or in a chart or something that. For all of them, that I think that might help.
Would it make more sense instead of saying days, like,
Uh-huh.
this is how many minutes you have.
Yeah.
And it counts.
And they're counting, it's like,
Yep.
as soon as the bell rings, the clock
I
is
mean, we're
going.
having a lot, I know, but
Yeah.
they would see instead of, oh, we got days, it's minutes.
Yeah,
So what happens to you if you go over the hours or minutes or whatever?
Well, you haven't accept, you get an
You get a
accepted,
letter
you get a letter
A
for
truancy
accepted
letter?
absence.
with, they're usually form letters.
Yeah, and
At
it's
some
used or
point you get
truancy.
a
Truancy.
truancy call, or
If you don't call in or you don't send a note, it gets to a point where then all of those now are gonna be unexcused, and it's not a lot of hours before you get to have a little meeting about truancies.
But then do they have to make those hours up after?
No, there's no making up, that's, yeah,
Then, they file charges.
yeah,
Parents, go, it's a
yeah,
whole
then you gotta go
process,
for it,
gotta
yeah.
go forward.
Gotcha.
So, yeah,
And give a plan on how you're gonna go
How you're
to
gonna-
school every day,
not be delinquent.
yeah.
So, yeah,
It's a fun.
good time. So we will, that's, but we'll, try to make that simple for, because it's different too, right, than it used to be.
Yeah, okay,
So,
Yeah.
yeah, so we'll, try to put a charter something in there, get
Yeah.
that a little more songs. So, got it, yeah, handbooks, so I wanted to give you the update on handbooks, there's in here, but they're not ready yet.
I'll be happy to give you my notes.
That would be great, so I don't miss
I mean,
anything,
I've got.
because I had some initial thoughts as I looked through them. So, and I'm still working on this org chart,
Okay.
that needs to be updated. And I think there's some supplementals that'll be on here from,
yeah,
the AD, we guess got more kids participating, not bad.
well,
Good.
that's good.
And books. We'll see, that's all I have.
Happy,
Okay. Am I missing anything?
updates.
We're still-
In the handbooks, they're still using them because, or they're still printing them because they actually use the agenda in them?
Yeah.
Is that why we print them?
So they're
Could we
gonna have
put
a handbook.
something out, like on our social media or something that just says like. We are working on it, like, I don't want it to be like a, surprise that there's gonna be some changes.
In handbooks?
Yeah.
What surprises, like what?
Like, that we're changing the cell phone policy or whatever, but just that, there's gonna be some changes that are gonna be coming out. I always feel like it's better to like
Sure.
throw some information out there and let them know that, hey, we're working on this, there's gonna be some changes, so just be aware.
There's gonna be a lot of phone calls.
To let them know that when they go through their final forms, they wanna pay special
Close
attention, close attention to changes in the handbook and student behavior.
Because I think we also talked about, making sure that parents understood they have the option, right, to opt out of certain programs and presentations that were, here at the school, and those should be on there, and it just needs to be a lot more clear about some of those things.
No, I can do that. Let me look at this, let me talk to Jacob as well. Cause he's like social media guy, right, communications, he's on vacation, but he doesn't sell, but let me think of, cause I asked him, so I used to do videos, right? And I would send them out to the community, and they would watch them, it's like quick hitters of just information going. Cause nobody wants to read it, just watch a video, and it's great, right, and so they would do that.
Feel real.
So I was asking Jacob about some of those things, and between him and Jason, he said there were some different things to do. So let me think of some ways to distribute that information, send it out to the community and. Get that done. There's some things too, like, extended school year came today. ESY, it's like, it starts soon,
Yeah,
and, and everybody's like.
so what's the plan?
So I picked up the phone and did, address some ESY concerns today. And parents were like, oh, that's great, thank you so much, but point being is, there's a quicker way to communicate. I'm a big fan of communication, right? I just think that you may not always agree with me, and we may not always see eye to eye, but at the same time, I'm gonna listen to you and I'm communicate with you. So if they don't like the answer, at least I'll know why.
I have a little concern about when the handbook and all this is getting done, because we use final forms to register our students. Sports are coming up, so the families are gonna be going into final forms to get the final forms signed off so their kids can start their, athletic training. And so if they've already gone through final forms once and hit everything and click the parent signature, they're gonna go back to it.
It's because you can't access the handbook.
Yeah,
It comes up.
And I can't answer that right now. It's on my list to do this week. I want to have.
I just don't know what the timeline would be.
Yeah.
The best timeline.
I can't answer that right now. I'm
Okay.
trying to just give you the update of, I know there's some issues with it and I'm
Mhm.
working on it. And, start, we have three board meetings in 3 weeks. It's a sprint, right? So I just want to get, I want to get it addressed, obviously, but I want to make sure it's done right. And we don't have to redo things, but like I said, you're right. I mean, in final forms and you got to extend, I get it.
Yeah,
Fall sports and starting summer,
yeah.
and starting August, obviously. Some things are doing already.
Mhm.
Yeah, the registration's already
Yep.
started.
So, but we'll, we get
Well,
the
I think then if we put something out there, then it won't be
shot.
a shock if they have to.
If they have to go back.
Go back and redo that.
And I'll apologize. I'll say,
I'm not,
sorry.
I'm not afraid to apologize.
Then next year we'll do handbooks like in spring. We don't,
Yes.
February.
That's what Megan.
Wouldn't February be a great time to do that?
Policies and handbooks and all that, that usually
I
gets
think
done.
that was discussed, when, and especially when administrators are still around.
Well, yeah, I'm doing things now, they're like, I got their cell phones.
Right, but.
So that means it's inclusion.
Yeah.
Guys weren't around, so I just took,
I did this, yeah.
so I just took the liberty to do.
But yeah, no, I mean, moving forward, just like, we'll do, the timeline will be a little different. We'll get some stuff.
Sounds good. Okay.
And I think that's
That's good.
all I got from what's gonna happen next week. That's it.
Yeah.
All right.
Fine.
Yeah, policy and then just go in executive session. Done.
I'm done.
You got it. Executive session.
Yes, and then what about the board houses for Neola? You gonna take those?
Oh, well, they're all right here. First of all, there's a ton of transportation policies. And so,
It's so fun to read.
with that being said,
Mistakes in there too, because I went through that as well.
I know, I read them all. I get that. You're right.
Mhm.
That's why I'm meeting with the Neola.
Okay. And I had asked Mr. Crispin to let our Neola rep know that I don't personally see a need to change the he, she references in there, so he can leave those out as far as I'm concerned. So there doesn't seem to be any reason to do that, but I know that. And he was supposed to, this Christmas was supposed to, he said he was.
And one other question for you, well, I have some others, but you can just do this, but, can they standardize the format? And so can you have headers, and every paragraph number or letter in an outline format? So when you reference paragraph,
Yeah,
A
right.
one, Roman numeral one or whatever, you can go right to it. That was the biggest thing.
And Narcan gonna come up too.
Yeah.
So,
Mhm.
I mean, I talked to the sheriff's office. Yeah, I don't necessarily see a problem with it here. It's under lock and key, right?
Yeah.
It won't hurt you. It's good for you.
It's
It's
good
what
to
you
have. I mean, unfortunately, today.
I mean, yeah, what if you have someone out in the athletic field and they're picking trash up and someone's been shooting up out there and you don't know, they pick it up, they're stabbed.
Or if something happens during a
And they have,
Basketball game, anything.
yeah.
Well, I just want to bring it up because sometimes it's controversial, but in my opinion is that if it's available, it's invented, it's usually like, the bright people have it. I kind of equate it back to, so, and this was like back when the EpiPens first came out, the bus drivers and, kids with allergic reactions, and, some didn't want to take them, some did, it's like, we got through that too, but this is another level.
Yeah.
So,
Well, it can save a life,
but yeah, so that'll come up and, like I told Jackie this, the Neola, OSBA, and, they work for us. So. Maybe 30.
Would be a fly on the wall.
So,
Okay,
Good deal. All right,
sounds good.
thank you.
Did you have something there, Lynn?
I was just gonna ask, I know your plate is really full, but I was wondering if next week we could have an update on, the fencing, the roadway, and there was a third thing, just, I haven't heard.
Bleachers.
The bleachers, yeah.
okay, so.
I mean, you don't have to, do that.
Fence-
Oh, what if you-
Fencing, okay, fencing roadway,
Uh-huh.
and
Bleacher-
bleachers.
Bleachers,
So I can answer the bleacher one first,
okay.
because I was out at the football field and I texted David and I said, there should be some bleachers over there. Call me crazy. I've been around a while, football field. There should be football. And so he texted me right back and goes, yep, they're on order. I said, okay, great. Will they be here before the first game? He said, absolutely.
Okay,
There's a bleacher.
oh, good, okay, good,
So,
I was gonna say PO's been issued a long time.
Yeah.
okay.
The thing, I don't know about fencing, we just, last board meeting, remember, we changed it up.
Right, yeah.
So, but I think the last time I talked to Todd about the roadway, it was July 26th is when they were gonna come out and do that. Because he's like, when should we issue the PO? And I'm like, if we can do it in July, that'd be great. So he said, yeah, July 26th is where he's on.
Oh,
the
good.
schedule for that.
And they've
And that's
asked,
Monty,
they've asked people to stop driving on it because they said they're grading it and stuff and getting ready.
Yeah, so my understanding is July 26th, but I'll double check with Todd, only because we were talking about the PO, don't need to step on.
are you fine?
no, that's
So-
great,
There's
thank you.
good.
I don't know about the, yeah, I've got to reissue a PO for the fencing since we changed.
So I didn't
it.
know about, I just knew that you improved the paving.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and I didn't, that's what I didn't know about the bleachers, because I had.
Because it's like, so.
There's some leeway, yeah, there's been a lot of.
Did they have to extend the pad? Cause
I
I
think
thought they
so.
were gonna do that.
For the bleachers? Yeah, I'm assuming that so they can see up and over. Yeah, if I could do, yeah, because when we built Mechanicsburg, we made the visitors lower where they couldn't see. I thought that. Oh. If I had done all over again, I probably would have done that. Because that was just me. I didn't like the conference. I didn't like the other teams, and so I put their bleachers down.
It's a little lower. It's like-
Yeah, that was probably, yeah, looking back on it, it's probably, I would recommend it, but hey, at the time I thought, you know what? Stand up straight.
We're just gonna put them where we want them.
So you got the top 5 rows, you could see the third. Like, yeah, so, yeah.
Some training bleachers.
So we're good with all that, right, for next week's agenda? You can all set
No,
ahead.
it's good.
So now could I get a motion to go into executive session for reason number 3, the conference with the board's attorney to discuss matters which are the subject of pending or imminent court action, as well as number 4, to discuss preparations for conducting or reviewing negotiations or bargaining sessions with.
I'll second.
Any discussion?
Excuse me. Let's do it.
Will you take roll, please?
Mrs. Leskowitz?
Yes.
Mrs. Butler?
Yes.
Mrs. Donahue?
Yes.
Mrs. Kiplinger?
Yes?
Mr. B?
Yes.
I have 7:27 going into executive session.
And we plan to adjourn afterwards, so there's
No
no
business.
more business.
No voting.